Hey everyone, Tyler here at The Movie Beat, back with another Korean movie review, a brand new one. I just got back from the theaters and checked out the historical drama film called The Book of Fish. Here is the awesome art card that I got from Lotte Cinema, and as you can see, it's all black and white. This film was black and white, beautiful black and white. I'll get into that more a little bit later. I love the art card. The back, we've got a few signatures. Very difficult to make out who exactly signed this, but I'm assuming Sol Kyung-gu, Byun Yo-han, or Lee Jeong-eun, probably the main three actors, I would say. So pretty awesome to have, a little note from them. A couple things I can make out. This one says 사랑합니다, which is I love you. So yeah, kind of difficult to read, but I love these art cards. And I'm super excited, super happy to have gotten this one because I really, really enjoyed this film. So the first thing I do want to note before I talk about the movie a little bit, my reaction, this film was actually very difficult for me to follow completely. And there's a few reasons I think for that. First of all, no English subtitles. So that's always kind of, a little bit, makes it a little bit hard. But this is a historical drama film, so a lot of movies that take place a long time ago, like in Joseon or something, there is a little bit different way of talking that is difficult for me, for one, as well as, we get the nobles type speaking, things like that. But the third reason this was difficult for me was because a lot of this takes place on a kind of secluded island, a lot of islanders, so there is a dialect there, as well as there is a very scholarly kind of layer to this film because the main characters are really high-level scholars, poets, writers, and so that language is very difficult for me to understand. But I want to do my best to share my just reaction and my thoughts on this film in general. So please note that right off the bat that this film was very difficult for me to understand all of the dialogue and things like that, and maybe some of the deeper meanings of the text that was read. Also, I do believe that this film was based on a real novelist or poet type of person, which is played by Sol Kyung-gu. And also there might have been the fisherman that he works with who becomes a scholar in this film. That might be a real character as well. I'm not totally sure. It might be helpful knowing that there was kind of an initial thing at the beginning of the film. Again, some of the historical context I wasn't super familiar with. But let me just say right off the bat as well, this film is gorgeous, okay? Just gorgeous overall. So I really didn't have to understand anything to get a lot out of it. This one was directed by Lee Joon-ik, who many people watched some of his other films like The Throne. He made a film called Anarchist from Colony. I didn't actually see that one, but he made Dongju, Portrait of a Poet, which I saw. So it seems to me like this filmmaker in particular has a lot of experience with historical type stories. He really kind of feels like one of the directors that tries to infuse a lot of really maybe traditional, historical type cultural identity, Korean cultural things into his films. So a man of experience, and I think it is time that he put together, I'm just going to say I haven't seen all of his films. This might be his masterpiece. All of his work that is, done kind of in this old historical way, I think he's really solidified his vision for this film in so many different ways. So let me do my best to give you guys kind of a brief rundown of the story as much as I understood it. Sol Kyung-gu, he plays a elite, I would say a really high-level scholar who's got a lot of works under his belt, maybe was very well respected at one point, but he and some of his colleagues, maybe they crossed the line in some way in their writings, and it really went against the highest levels of the royal, the politics at the time. They were exiled, and so Sol Kyung-gu, he plays a character named Jung-ak-jeon, who I believe is a real historical figure. He's exiled to this really remote island called Huksung Island, And there he is greeted by pretty much everybody when he arrives, but the seniors in the village kind of give everybody a warning: stay away from this guy, he's bad news. Who's gonna let him stay in his house? And of course, people are kind of reluctant, but people are friendly. There's one islander played by Lee Jeong-eun, who everybody knows from Parasite. She was the housekeeper. She's an amazing actress. She also really blew me away in The Day I Died, a film from last year. She was a supporting character in that. She is great in this. She volunteers to house this guy, Jung Ok-jun. So he's going to be staying with her. They live in a beautiful spot on this mountain, on the island, on a top hill. They got an incredible view. I just couldn't believe it. But he is a figurative fish out of water in this island. From his academic history, he is not really from this world. There, he encounters this character named Chang-dae, who is a very, very good fisher. This is played by Byun Yo-han, and their first interaction is not good. This character, Chang-dae, doesn't want anything to do with Jung Ok-jun, and things kind of unfold in a very interesting way. The character Jung Ok-jun, played by Sol Kyung-gu, he starts to really become fascinated with the lifestyle on the island, the fishing, in particular the actual fish and all the different types of aquatic creatures that are caught and eaten on the island. So everything from stingrays, octopus, baby shark, giant fish, the crustaceans, all of that, as far as like kind of the different parts of them. He's almost like taking a very scientific approach to, I don't want to say like really dissecting, but he's very curious at all the different parts, the tastes and things like that. Because the creatures here that he eats, that is prepared for him at first, he's never eaten anything like that before in his life, and a new side of his intellect is reawoken. And so all of these sea creatures, this lifestyle really sparks this new curiosity in him, something to really start his writing again, because he's working on this epic, novel that he doesn't even know if he's ever going to finish. He thinks he's going to be working on it until the day he dies. And so what's really interesting about this character who he runs into named Chang-dae, played by Byun Yo-han, he is a native on the island, fisherman, and he actually dreams of becoming a scholar. So he spends some of his free time studying, but of course he's limited to the resources and what kind of teachers that he can actually have on the island. But he is very dedicated and will actually probably dream to have a life that somebody like Jung Ok-jun was exiled from. And so the two of them kind of form this deal where Chang-dae is going to teach Jung Ok-jun about the fish life, the marine life, and all the aquatics and things like that. And Jung Ok-jun is going to teach Chang-dae the higher arts, the poetry, how to read, how to write, how to think like a scholar. So maybe one day Chang-dae could become a scholar himself, and he actually does develop towards that. So this story, it was weird at first for me, but it became very magical, and I kind of loved the first and second acts of this movie because it just had that very magical feel to it. I loved that both of these characters were extremely smart from different worlds. Most people become really smart in one category, but they're lacking in another part, and this film really kind of showed a real great harmony between the scholar, academia types, as well as the maybe what would traditionally be thought of not very intellectual, rugged, rural types. But it really blended that in a way to make a higher being, because they both learn that there is a lot of smarts and learning that they can get from each other. And they actually both end up moving towards a more like what I guess I could describe as like an enlightened state. And it really benefits both of them, and their lives become much more enriched by understanding those different sides of life, both the rural side, the academic side, and that one part of their brain becomes like whole now. That was amazing, just to see these characters evolve in that way. And I really liked how they also kind of portray in this film that, what, as far as the meaning of, smarts go, and just how a lot of people get to a certain level of smarts or scholarly, and they kind of start coasting, or they take advantage of their position. And it's really not a pure pursuit of yourself and understanding and advancing information and knowledge and creating new works. It's just basically about getting to a position of power where you can kind of do what you want. And both of these characters, I believe, are more pure, intellectual types, that they place a very strong emphasis on that pursuit of pure knowledge and advancement and just kind of becoming like a master. And that was interesting to be shown as something that kind of conflicts with the way society is set up, especially back then, and maybe even now. But there was a lot of things in this film that I felt were very deep. But I think the number one takeaway of this film that probably everybody will be talking about is just the visual beauty of it. It was black and white, but it is probably the most gorgeous photography that I have seen in a long time. The framing in this has a very classical style to it. It almost feels like you're watching a classic film, and I think the filmmakers went to great length. They shot this on location with just a lot of the different props they used, the costuming, but the framing in particular felt really classic. They use a lot of the like old Korean style houses that are kind of, I think they're called hanok houses that have open doors, and the window is kind of like a door, but a lot of people are framed through that. The entire frame is just beautifully composed, whether it's the nature shots of the waves and the ocean coming in, or people just sitting in their houses. It just felt like I was watching an old masterpiece. So if I just walked in and I thought, like, what old movie is remastered? Like, is this? It looks like some type of Kurosawa masterpiece type framing and everything. So almost perfect. I just couldn't believe it. And I think all of the aquatic creatures, I think some of them are real, some of them probably were not real. But at first I was like, is this kind of like a life aquatic type? Did they make up some of these animals? I don't think so. But some of them do look very weird. I've never seen some of these sea creatures that they dig up, but I was also fascinated with how they looked, and I think that's what the main character also was fascinated with them as well. Also, this film kind of gets a little bit slower, I think, towards its third act, but it's really saying a lot. There was a lot in the message with the character Chang-dae, the fisherman who dreams of becoming a scholar. The two main leads, they kind of have a parting of ways of sorts. Even if I thought it was a little bit slower, I think it was very necessary for making it feel like when the credits started going, I was like, this is an epic. Like, this is such a good piece of cinema overall. So there was a lot of things in this film that really had me thinking, and I was like, wow, this movie is portraying something fundamental about humanity, human nature, and it's set in a historical Korean context. And so this film really has a lot of tradition and culture, identity. I think a lot that might be lost on, at least some was definitely lost on me, but people that are not super familiar with Korean history, Korean culture, there's a lot I think that I could learn from watching more of this director's films, as well as just more from this time period, taking more history lessons and whatnot. But this film did feel very, very, very well made. And I can't recommend it enough. Until I can watch this again with English subtitles, I am going to keep my rating for this film at an 8.5. I think it is very close to being like masterpiece level. The only thing that I probably am not a good person to explain or tell about is how accurate this is for maybe Korean people's understanding or who this character is in their mind from a historical context. Do these actors represent those characters well? I don't know, because I don't really have anything to base it off of. So I thought the acting was incredible from everybody, Sol Kyung-gu, Byun Yo-han, and Lee Jeong-eun in particular, but there is a big supporting cast in this as well, and I just thought everybody was amazing. Very impressed overall. So The Book of Fish 2021, I think, is one of my leading favorite movies that I've seen this year in Korea. Of course, it's still very early and I have not seen very many 2021 Korean films, but this one I would highly recommend those that are, okay with black and white and like historical films to check out. Awesome movie. Okay, so again, I'm gonna rate this one an 8.5 for now. I do want to rate it a 9, but I want to again, understand it completely before I go that high. Check it out if you can. Let me know your thoughts on it when that time does come. So I hope this one was helpful, everybody. If you like these reviews, reactions, please let me know by liking, subscribing to the channel, or leave a little comment down below. Until next time, I'm Tyler here at The Movie Beat. Keep watching movies.